Welcome back. Are you ready to build the image path using our JavaScript form? So now that we've got all of the inputs set up, we've got the event listeners added in, we can remove out the console messages, and going down to build, the next objective is to get the values that are contained within these inputs and apply them into our image path. And we're going to grab them separately. So setting up a variable for that. We can also have an object for that if we wanted to. So we can create an object, call it I, and then have I size. And size would be equal to selecting that image size. And we've already got the select object and taking the value that's contained within that select object. And I'll console log out whatever the value of I is, that object I. So whenever we have any changes, and we do need to refresh that, and we see that we've got the size there. I'm also going to get rid of this console message because we don't need that anymore. Just adding more into our console there. So we've got a size of 350 by 150. We also need to select all of the values here contained within the images. And we've got all of these as a node list. And I'll show you what that looks like. So if we want to get the first one, and we know that the first input is going to be our text on the image. So if we do this and we refresh and then we do something here, we can see that we are getting that right input field. So we can easily grab the value just as we did with the select object. So that gives us the ability to get the value that's contained within there, and there we've got our value showing up. So next thing that we can do is we can write text, and this is going to be equivalent to this. And we can also get the colors the same way as we've got our background color and our foreground color. So those are the two colors that we can utilize. So we can have one, so we've got our background color, and again the same idea where we're selecting that input all. So we've already got those inputs within that node list. So we can really easily select them and utilize them. And we've got our text color. So let's see what this looks like now. So whenever we select and make any kind of selection here, we've got all of the criteria that we need and that we want to use in order to build out our placeholder image string. So we're ready to create that path. So setting that up, and we'll hard code the path for placeholder images. So if you want to set up a placeholder images, the path is always the same, where we're setting up placeholder.com and then /. So the first parameter that we need is the size. So we can add in I size into it. And the next parameter that we have is the colors. So setting up those two colors. And don't forget to break out of your quotes and break in and break out of the quotes. So the background color. And just going back to the placeholder.com just to make sure that we're getting the colors right. So it is / separated. So just making sure that the path is correct. And then I and text color. And then lastly, we're outputting some text. And you see that the format is with the question mark and then the text. So we can add the question mark and say text and then equal that. And then this will be equal to whatever the output of I text is. So anytime we make any type of update there, we see we're generating a new path for the image. And now next, all we need to do, we actually need to do one other thing, and that's removing out the hashes out of there. So we can create a function that will clean it up. As we see within placeholder.com, there's no hashes within the hex of the colors. And let's call this clean. And we can pass in a string. And within this clean string, what we want to do is we want to return back the cleaned version. So we're taking the string that's being passed in using replacing the hash with just a blank. So we can take that clean function, wrap it around our values so that we can have that all within one statement. And now let's see what gets produced. So that's now the colors without the background, without the hash. Next, let's select our image object. And we have a choice here where we can do our image. So we can do my image and then using document, query selector. and selecting out the element with the tag of image. And of course, if you have more images, you've got to be a little bit more specific when you're making your selector. If you use query selector and if you've got more than one image, you're only going to get the first one being returned back within the query selection. So we've got our image, we've got the image. For images, there's an attribute, a source attribute, and then updating that to be equal to iPath. So now whenever we set up and we make some changes, you can see that we're automatically generating that new image, and it's showing up as we're generating it and as we're making the updates to it. So any of the content that we change within our form generates a new image and a new image path. So lastly, what we want to do is output this to the user, so it's really easy to select that. So after they've created the image that they want to use, the placeholder image that they want to use, then they can select that image and get the path to that image really quickly. What's coming up next? So go ahead and add this functionality into your application so that you do have the option to select the content from your input fields and add it in and make use of it within a JavaScript object that you can generate a path. So coming up next, we're going to complete this application by adding in an option for the user to be able to select the path.